You may have heard that the SBA and the Department of Treasury just released new rules on the PPP program on May 15th. Of course, they came out on a Friday evening, and we are all kind of scrambling to catch up. Hi, I'm lawyer Autumn Witt-Boyd, and I'm here today to give you an update on what these new rules mean for you. The SBA released not only some guidance on Friday the 15th, but also a multi-page PDF packet that is going to be how you will apply for forgiveness. So after you've spent your PPP money, this is what you will have to submit to your bank. I did not print it all out, but I have a couple notes. So if you see me over here referencing these, that's what I am looking at. I'm not going to go over the entire forgiveness kind of protocol. I have another video that covers that. So if you haven't watched that already, go watch that other video. It's going to go in detail on what you can spend the money on, general guidance about what documents you should have, and how to prepare in case you're audited. So go watch that other video. This is just a short update on the new rules that came out on May 15th. All right, so the first thing that we now know that we didn't know before, and this was a question I had for my personal business, was how are we going to figure out when we have to use the money? So the law and the regulations that we had seen before say that you have 8 weeks. This is the quote unquote covered period. You have 8 weeks to spend your PPP money. But for a lot of us, let's say you run payroll every other week or maybe once a month like I do, and you get your money in the middle of the month. And so it doesn't match up with when you're normally making these payments. Or maybe your rent is due on the 5th, but you got your loan on the 7th. So kind of how does that all work? So here's what we know. For payroll, they are finally acknowledging that, payroll periods may vary. So here is how that is going to work. You basically have two options for how you can spend your payroll money and when. You can either use that 8-week period that starts the day the money hits your bank account and ends, 8 weeks later. That can be your covered period, and you have to spend all the money within that period. Or you can choose what's called an alternate payroll period. And that is going to work like this. It is going to be, again, it's 56 days. It's only 8 weeks. So you can choose an alternate payroll covered period. And here's how that's going to work. Your payroll has to either be paid or incurred during that 56-day period. So here's what that means. Paid means it's the day the employee gets the money. So this was a question I had because if you use a payroll service provider like we use Gusto here at my law firm, they pull the money from your account a day or two before they actually distribute it to your employees to make sure that everything goes through. So the date that matters is the date that your employee either is handed a paycheck or the money goes in their direct deposit. So that is the date it's considered paid. You can also use the money if it's incurred during this 56-day period, and that is the day that the employee's pay is earned. So let's say that you pay 2 weeks after your employees have actually earned the money. You're on a little bit of delay, which is very common. The day that the employee's pay is earned would be the day they're actually doing the work, and you're just paying later. So if you have payroll costs that are incurred, so the employee has earned the money, you just haven't paid it yet, then you basically get a little time after your 8-week period to run payroll. But it has to be your next regular day. You can't stretch that out too long. It is eligible for forgiveness if it's paid on or before your next regular payroll date. So you can even do it a little early if you wanted to. We were talking about doing that with my law firm when we weren't sure how this was all going to shake out. You can pay it early. You just can't pay it any later than your next regular payroll date. So hopefully that helps with a lot of us that the payroll dates don't exactly line up with that 8-week period. You do have a little bit of flexibility there to use your money and still have it eligible for forgiveness. Another question that I've gotten a lot is there is this rule that you have to spend 75% minimum of your PPP money on payroll expenses. Now that includes benefits and some other things, but it's mostly going to be salaries and wages. So that number, your PPP loan amount, was based on your payroll last year, which may have changed a little bit. And it was an average. So if your payroll fluctuates a little bit month to month, as mine does, you might not be able to meet that exactly. So I'd gotten the question, can you bonus your employees to kind of use up your PPP money and meet that 75% minimum? And the answer is yes, you can do bonuses to catch up to that 75-25 minimum. However, just remember that your cap per employee is based on $100,000 a year, annualized down to 8 weeks. So that's the maximum that you can pay and have forgiven per employee during that 8-week period is $15,385. So you can do bonuses, but if your bonuses would take them over that $15,385 amount, that is not going to be forgivable. So be careful. And that may be tricky. So what I think may end up happening, and this is okay, is that you may not be able to have your entire loan amount forgiven. Maybe you can get most of it, but not all of it. And that's fine. It's a 1% loan that you pay back over 2 years. So it's not a huge deal if you have to pay back a little bit of it. But yes, you can bonus your employees or even yourself to get up to that 75-21 minimum. All right, I've gotten the same question about timing for non-payroll costs. So remember, you can use PPP money on 4 things: payroll, interest on a mortgage, not principal on a mortgage, utilities, and rent. Did I count everything? Yes, that should be the four categories. So I've gotten a question, if let's say your utility bill isn't due until the 15th, but your 8-week period is over on the 10th, can you prepay that amount? And the answer is yes, so long as it was incurred within that 8-week period. And I don't know how granular they're going to get, if they're going to like try and prorate a 30-day utility bill if only 25 days fall into the period. We don't know that. I've not seen that in any of the guidance, so hopefully not. But I was speaking with a CPA friend today, and she said, yes, you can, if you have a bill, so you know what the amount is. And if you have a bill, that means it's been incurred. Even if the bill isn't due until, sometime after the 8-week period, it's fine to go ahead and prepay it so that that amount is debited from your account. That's what matters. For non-payroll costs, it's the date that the money leaves your account. That is okay for non-salary expenses. And I think that would include rent as well. And the guidance specifically says that, it said somewhere here about prepayment. Now I can't find it. But yes, it specifically mentioned that was okay for non-payroll costs. And this is important for both payroll and non-payroll costs. You can only count them once. So there's a difference between, was it incurred or was it paid during the period? You can only count that once. So if it was incurred and paid, you just count it once. If it was incurred but not yet paid, you count that once. If it was paid, well, you can't pay it if it's not incurred. But you should only be counting any one expense one time. Okay, I've also gotten questions about if you yourself, you're an owner of the company, can you increase your payments or your owner's comp to get up to that 75-25 threshold, to use 75% of the money on payroll expenses? The answer is yes, but you're going to be limited by what you paid yourself or what your profits were on your 2019 Schedule C. So you cannot, bonus yourself basically more than your 2019 Schedule C. And again, you're going to be limited, that's on your tax return. And then again, you're going to be limited by that $15,385 amount per employee. You cannot pay yourself more than that. The last question I got was, is it okay to hire a relative? So I had one business friend who was having a little trouble with her headcount, and she said she just hired her husband. That should be okay. We haven't seen any guidance about, can you hire a relative? There are no rules about that now, with the caveat that this is changing all the time. Like, these rules just came out and people received their PPP loans weeks ago. So we're all kind of figuring it out as we go, and things are changing. So we may see guidance about that in the future. So it appears to be okay today, but we're not 100% sure that will stay okay. Okay, and then the last question that I got was, what date do you need to look at? So there are rules that you've probably seen that you can't let your headcount number drop too much, or you are going to not have your entire loan amount forgiven. That's because this loan is really meant to help you keep your payroll, keep your headcount up. So I've gotten some questions about what date do we look at when we're comparing what's my headcount today, how many employees do I have on payroll versus, what is the date? Is it on February 15th? Is it 2019? What's the date? And the answer is it depends. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure. This new guidance gives you basically 3 choices. You can either use the period of February 15, 2019 to June 30, 2019. So I think they're trying to look at kind of a comparable period last year to this period we're in right now. But it's not calendar year 2019. It's just basically February 15 to June 30, 2019. Or you can look at January 1 to February 29, 2020. So you basically can look at the first 2 months of 2020. Or if you're a seasonal employer, basically you can use either of those 2 that I just talked about, or you can basically pick a 12-week period between May 1, 2019 and September 15, 2019. So I think if you're basically a summer seasonal business, you can pick your 12 weeks. So that there's not just one answer. You can kind of pick, I think, whichever one would be most beneficial to you. So whichever period most closely matches your current headcount. And then you're going to compare that to your headcount from February 15, 2020 to April 26, 2020. And if you look at the worksheet and the documents that are in these instructions, it will kind of walk you through doing this, but that's a question I've been getting a lot. So I just wanted to answer that. And I will note, remember there is the safe harbor. So even if your headcount has dropped, as long as you hire people back by June 30th of 2020, you may be able to fall in that safe harbor where you still get full forgiveness, even if your headcount has dropped. You get a little bit longer time to bring them back. Okay, I hope this was helpful. If you have further questions, if this is all just, soup in your brain and you need help figuring out how to make sure your PPP loan is forgiven, our law firm is working on these issues every day and we are happy to help. So the best way to get in touch with us is to send us an email to awbinfo@awbbfirm.com, where you can go to the link below. You'll find a link to all of our COVID-19 resources, and you can sign up for our newsletter there to get frequent updates. That is kind of our information hub. All is on our website. Let me know if you have questions. Feel free to send us an email with questions. Also, we'll be doing more videos on this as things come out, and good luck getting your PPP loan forgiven.